Happy New Year, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the You, Me, and BTC podcast. Thanks for being with us. As always, couldn't do it without you. And today is a special episode for several reasons. Number one is, Happy New Year. If you're listening to this the day it comes out, I guess New Year's is still a few days out. But we're getting close, and it's almost 2017. Now, in keeping with our New Year's-ish tradition, just like it's nothing special, everyone talks about the New Year when New Year's comes around, and that's what we do too. Ever since the beginning, we started this show late December of 2014, I want to say. We started this show around New Year's, and one of the first things we did was talk about the New Year, and we've been doing it ever since. So that's another thing that is special for today. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
Tim Baker.
And another special thing is that for the first time in quite a while, we're actually recording, at least in the same house. We still have reasons to do it in a different room because the mics aren't quite set up to
it's called
handle.
Tim's mic sucks.
Yeah, pretty much.
And we'll pick up everything. That's why.
The same mic he's been using for the past 3 years now. It sucks. So yeah, and so we can't quite record in the same room, but we're close enough, and we've only had a few episodes over the years where we've actually been together, so that's always special. And then the last thing, and this actually happens at New Year's too, I get really busy. So we did this last year. We don't edit. We do our live style. We've done live shows in the past, and they're a lot of fun. And the big difference, obviously, with live shows is that you don't edit them. And so when I'm busy, we treat it like it's live. So you got us today completely uncut and uncensored, so be careful, Tim, you know.
Why don't you be careful, me? You're the one that just runs your mouth sometimes and says weird shit. But, you guys have Daniel today. As we all know, it's Daniel's world. We're all living in it. So when Daniel gets busy, everything else falls by the wayside, including you guys. It's great to be here, Daniel. Be back in your strange basement. But yeah, I think it'll be fun. We haven't done a lot. Well, it's been a little bit since we did a live-ish episode, I think. So it'll be cool to see how this goes. Actually have to talk without just constantly saying constantly. Up. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see what we can do. And so what we have, like I said, on the docket for today is talking about the new year, but we're also going to talk about the last year. And I went back to an episode just about a year ago. It was number 106. And the way we do our episode links, if you don't know, if you want to find episode 106, you can go to youmeandbtc.com/E106. It's that simple, E106. And if you want to listen to it, that was another uncut episode for the same reason. And it was called Bitcoin Past, Present, and Future. Because, like I said, that's what we talked about too. So we're going to get right into it then. I guess we'll start with the past. We'll go in order here. We'll talk about last year and then talk about next year. So, Tim, what do you remember from the last year? What sticks out? What did we talk about over and over and over? What did people argue about? I don't know. Tell me what the last year in Bitcoin brings to mind for you.
Well, probably the block size debate has been beat to death at this point. So there's that. There's always is Bitcoin dead yet or not? Which I think right at the beginning of the last year there was a pretty big news story for that a lot of mainstream news outlets dropped off. There's that again.
Yeah, that's actually something we definitely wanted to get into. I completely agree that even last year, the block size debate was a big thing. And when I say last year, I mean in 2015. And so that's what we talked about for 2016 New Year's. And it still was a big thing all year. But yeah, the big story last January that I think you're referring to was Mike Hearn, right?
When Mike Hearn kind of
up and
I
left.
guess he disavowed. Yeah, he pretty much disavowed, said it's dead. I can't have my way, so just nothing else.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore.
Exactly. And I remember that because I've been living in Arizona for almost exactly a year now. And I remember that being one of the first episodes that we did when I was out there, because for whatever reason, I just remember doing that episode while sitting on the floor because I didn't have a desk yet. So I don't know why I remember that. But yeah, that was one of the...
I vaguely remember that now too, with you saying that.
Yeah. So what is it then? Is Bitcoin dead? Was Mike Hearn right?
I mean, it might be. This might be the dying throes of it, but seeing as how it's jumped up, I'm looking right at one of these pages, like 10% in the last 7 days.
Yeah, even in the past 12 hours, it went up like $20.
Yeah,
and so I mean,
it's panic buying. Everybody's panic buying because they're waiting for it to die. They're going to panic buy. They're buying it like it's going out of style, which I've never really understood that phrase because.
Well, it is worth mentioning that obviously anyone who's been in Bitcoin since the beginning knows that people get hyped up about it a lot. There have been several bubbles before and then it's crashed. So it just because the price has flown up in the past 12 hours does not mean that, oh, there it is. Now we know Bitcoin is legit. No, I mean, the price can go up anytime for any reason. And oftentimes for pointless reasons, like people just being randomly excited and trying to make a buck. So, to be fair, by the time that we're recording this a week early, we're recording on Thursday the 22nd, and you'll hear this on Thursday the 29th. Did I do my math right there? +7, there we go.
Very good, Daniel.
So by the time you're listening to this, maybe we'll be all the way back down at 200 bones. I don't know.
I'm hoping. I'll just buy a bunch.
Actually, same. I literally have been waiting for it to go down to buy more. I obviously, as everyone says, I wish I bought more. Of course you do. Everyone does. But so far there are no signs of Bitcoin being dead unless it is just a violent thrashing of death. I mean,
it's the death throes of Bitcoin is that it goes up in price because that's normally how things work.
Yeah.
Like you said, the price doesn't matter that much, but it's an indicator of people's interest in it at least. And Bitcoin can't really die because it's a technology, but people's interest in it can go away. So right now it doesn't look like it's going anywhere, especially a year after a prediction from someone who wasn't really happy about the situation. Maybe he was fighting against what it's become, and that's why it's gotten so diluted and everything, and it's sold out, and that's why it's making these up around 850 now, 860.
Oh yeah,
and that kind of does make sense at the end of the year. Things I'd imagine. I mean, I kind of figure that a lot of things go up at the end of the year, like it's before.
I
you
guess
restart maybe, and I'd expect it to just be all like with everything else. It's all in people's heads, and it's up to whatever kind of whim we have as humans in our heads as to what goes down. I was looking at the chart last year, right before the new year. It looked like it had a decent uptick to it.
Okay,
maybe that's just people getting Christmas money and they're putting it right into Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's a really good question because everyone knows that. Retail does really well at the end of the year because of Christmas, of course. That's what, Black Friday is when they finally start to make money or whatever. But yeah, that's a really good question. How does that translate to regular businesses or investments or currencies or whatever? I guess it's the same idea. I mean, economic activity, people are moving money and buying stuff. So, and some of that might involve Bitcoin. I could see a little bit of that. I don't know if that is what is actually driving it up right now. But yeah, I mean, economic activity, when anything goes up, retail or whatever, then yeah, I could see that trickling into Bitcoin a little bit, somewhat. There are going to be people out there that own retail businesses that are making money and say, I'll put some into Bitcoin. Sure. I could see that a little bit. I don't know if it would be enough though to drive everything we're seeing right now, but But I could be wrong. Maybe that's normal. Maybe all investments do really just go up at the end of the year for whatever reason, you know?
Well, I've looked at all of 2 stock charts for people for different companies, and both of them seem to do that, so I'm just going to go with that and just say that works across the board.
Look at that sound research. That's why we have Tim on our research team for our website.
Exactly.
That's why you can trust
Google search.
That's why you can trust every word we've ever said on the air or on the site, of course, because Tim knows his stuff. But I mean, yeah, like I said, it's definitely possible, and it is what it is. The other factor, though, is this happens a lot on a quarterly basis. People do, it depends on the industry. In my industry, I deal a lot with online advertising, and they do ramp up the spending at the end of a quarter, because whatever you're trying to advertise and sell, you have, as a marketer who's trying to run ads, you have quotas, or at least measurements, whether or not you're going to get fired if the measurement is low. You're still trying to make that measurement as high as possible. And so at the end of the quarter, they say, oh crap, we need to sell more and we need to finish out our budget so we can get our next quarter's budget. So we're going to buy a ton of advertising. And so we have seen that, where at the end of a quarter, and especially at the end of the year, because Christmas is involved too, and whatever else, Hanukkah and stuff, then online advertising revenue and cash flow and whatever does increase. But if you think of an investment, it's almost the other way around. At the end of a quarter, you're not looking to take on more risk. You're looking to close out your positions, right? At the end of a year, you want to say, okay, Bitcoin's up. I've made money. I'm going to close it out so that on my annual report, I can officially say, yes, we made X dollars with Bitcoin. Does that seem like a factor? It's kind of the opposite of advertising, because they need to spend money, and but if you're investing, you want to lock in by the end of a period. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? I mean, would an investment be the other way around or not?
You'd think, but at the same time, I don't understand these. I just look at charts and go, oh, okay, whatever. And that's kind of what I was saying before about how it seems like at the end, something at the end of the year. And I don't know if that's because that's how markets are set up. I mean, I'm sure it's just because that's how, just as people, we go, okay, well, this is a new year. We're going to start new. We're going to start fresh. And I understand, like, you try to, like, you'd sell the stuff to get back on your investment, to secure that and say, okay, I definitely made this. It's no longer up in the air if it could go up another $200 or go down $600. So I'd understand that logic, but at the same time, you'd always, for a Bitcoin example, you have that argument of, well, as Bitcoin is going up, people would spend less of it, you'd think, but people tend to just buy it.
No. I don't know. I feel like we've debunked this argument before. When people argue about hoarding Bitcoin, I think our defense has been that, well, no. On the other hand, if it goes up, if you expect it to gain value, then you're going to want to spend it, because now you can get more with your Bitcoin. I've done that before. When the Bitcoin price goes up, I buy gold or silver with it. And because I want to lock in some of those gains, right?
Yeah, because you wanted to put it into something else that either is more stable or just that you're less likely to get rid of after. So, but yeah, that would say that it was going to go down then. I mean, I can't really explain why at the end of the year. It probably is just something where people go, okay, it's kind of at the end of the year, I have a little bit of money left. Or because I've done or people are going into the holidays, they have to have they have money, presents, going places. Okay, I have this little bit left, if I'll buy some. And then as more people buy, as more people put money into something, then it starts to go up, and then people just start to chase it. Most people don't.
Yeah. I think we can agree on that. It is, like I said, a minute or two ago, I don't think, no matter what you argue about the end of the year and investments and stuff and money and Christmas, no matter what you argue about that stuff, I don't think that alone is enough to make it go from 790 to 860 in a week. I think what we can be sure about is that a big portion of this is just excitement, where people say, oh, it's going up, I got to get some before it's too much. Oh, I got to get more. Oh, it's going up, I could make money, I got to get some. That is something that I think is pretty clear. I mean, yeah, we could talk about what started it. We could talk about what happens at the end of the year. But at the end of the day, we know a big part of this is excitement for now, because we've seen it before, and that doesn't mean it's wrong. A lot of it, the excitement is legitimate, and a lot of people really do want it just to have Bitcoin. But some people are just excited and just buying it because they're a little worried that it might be too expensive in the future and stuff like that, or because they just want to make money on it. And so I think that's pretty clear. Would you agree that is the biggest factor, regardless of what started it?
Yeah, it's just everyone kind of gets caught up into hysteria, if you want to call it that, or just, yeah, excitement is a more positive term.
Yeah.
It's just, and like when people sell it, they call it panic selling. I don't know if you'd call it panic buying, but I guess you could, where it's, well, it just went up $20. What if it goes up another 60? And I can just make a little money there, and then, I'll get out before it goes back down.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we just went on about the price for quite a while. I don't think we necessarily intended to. I guess it all started with the whole conversation about Bitcoin being dead and not being dead. But that brings us back then to the beginning of 2016, where, yes, Mike Hearn said it was dead, and so far it doesn't seem like that's the case. But one of the reasons that he said it was dead was because of the block size, the whole issue there. And that is something else. As painful as it is, we got to revisit it a little bit right now, because the other thing that we talked about in last year's New Year's episode was segregated witness. I forget if we mentioned that at the beginning of this show yet, but that was a big topic, and it's related to the block size, of course, because we've covered this a little bit before, but if you don't know, segregated witness, basically, it doesn't make the blocks bigger, but it reduces the parts, the amount of each transaction that needs to be in the blockchain. So they take part of each transaction and just stop putting it in the blockchain. They handle it in different ways so that they can fit more transactions in each block, because the transactions are smaller, because part of the transactions are segregated. The witness is segregated. That's why it's called SegWit, because they take the witness part and they take it out of the block. And so there it is, Tim. That's the other thing that was big last New Year's. And so what about that? We mentioned SegWit here and there. We did a few episodes on it. But it has been a few months, and we didn't do any serious updates recently. So I'm wondering if you even know what's going on with it. I know a little bit, and I can share it, but just out of curiosity, I want to know what you've been keeping up with. Do you know where it stands right now?
I mean, just from talking to you earlier today, which is the joy and the benefit of us doing this in the same house, where you said that they're, I think they're voting on it now. So I've heard that, and I've heard a little bit of what a few of our guests have said, or just random news articles about it have said it where it is.
Right.
They're like, it hasn't gone anywhere, or this will change the internet, or...
Right. So the last time we really covered it was probably in our Via BTC episode, where we talked about that mining pool that was trying to prevent SegWit by voting against it. And do you remember us talking about the voting mechanism during that episode, Tim? I don't think we did. And if that's the case, I'll share it now. Do you remember us talking about that?
I don't remember us talking about it. I remember reading about it very vaguely, but
okay, so,
I don't remember talking about it.
Okay, I didn't think so either. So the way they're voting is with every single block, the miners can put a flag kind of in that block that says, yes, I want SegWit, or no, I don't want SegWit. That's it. So the miners are the ones that are voting, and they're voting on a per block basis. So the more blocks you mine, the more votes you get. And here's the crazy thing, Tim. With SegWit, they set it up so that it's not turned on until they get 95% of an aye vote, right? 95% of the blocks have to say, yes, I want SegWit before it turns on. So first of all, that's not really a New Year's thing, but I just want to get your opinion on that. Is that too much? Because the issue there is that some people say, well, that'll never happen because Via BTC already has like 10% of the blocks. So they already kind of just, unless people leave that pool or unless a bunch of people in other pools start mining more, they say we might not get SegWit. Does that seem crazy to you? Is that number too high?
I don't think it's
actually, one more little nuance. That's an artificial limit. That the theoretically 51% of people could say, no, we're just going to make Bitcoin without the 95% requirement, so that as soon as we get control of the network, as soon as we hit 51%, then SegWit will become a thing, and then so as we've always said, with Bitcoin, 51% is the decider officially, but they artificially put that number up to 95 just because they wanted a little more consensus, which I have nothing wrong with consensus. I think I agree that it's beneficial to have 95% of people agreeing on something, because then that means it's more sure, it's more accepted, and people are going to fight less. But still, 51% is all you really need to take control of the network and turn it on anyway. But someone would have to actually, do some work to make that happen. Anyway, so go ahead. Anything?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's good to have 95% of people. It's smart to do that when you're something new trying to come in, so that you can kind of dispel the rumor of saying that, oh, they're just going to take it over as soon as they get to 51%, where 95 people they're a little bit more willing to be like, all right, 95% of us agree with this, let's just bowl over the rest of people. Because in Bitcoin, people at least are a little bit like, well, I mean, not everybody, obviously, but a lot of people do kind of understand that just straight democracy, 51% of people saying whatever the other 50% of people or 49% of people are going to do is kind of, I mean, it's a little bit weird. So I think the 95% it's good for them. And I mean, I guess I kind of like it. It does seem pretty high for them to expect that.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone dislikes the idea. It's just a problem of whether it could ever be effective. Are we ever really going to get that many people to agree? And I don't know the answer, but
I don't think so. I don't know 95% that just agree on a lot of things.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of like this. To think of of an analogy with democracy. With democracy, everyone knows it's not one person, one vote. It's one gun, one vote. Right? I mean, technically they want the majority of people to vote for someone, but if a group of people had enough guns, they could take control and have things go their way. And, so that's how it is with mining. And that's a whole other discussion with Bitcoin is that even the right way to do things, to have the miners vote? And we shouldn't get into all this right now, but it is a big discussion. It's proof of work versus proof of stake versus proof of whatever else. Like, what is it that gets you a vote? Is it fair to have the miners be the voters? Because most people aren't miners, and most people don't even run full nodes. So, yeah, it's a discussion worth having, and maybe we should do it sometime. But, so I don't know. Maybe that wraps up our SegWit update, but that was a huge thing a year ago, and I guess we were pretty, well, this wasn't, I say we were pretty right, but we weren't the ones that said, oh, I predict that this is going to be big. No, it's just something that people were talking about and something that other people thought was going to be big. So we talked about it too. And in that sense, yeah, it's true. What we said was true. It was a big topic this year, and it kind of reached its culmination in terms of planning in the past few months. And all that's left to do is wait and see whether the people decide to do it or not. That's all that's left. It's done. It's there. It's a thing. It's developed. And now it's just, do we turn it on or not? And we'll have to wait and see. I think that they're only up to like 15% are officially saying yes. And then there are a few like not voters. Most people are non-voters. And then some people are in Bitcoin Unlimited, which is via BTC, which is kind of like a definite no. It's not just a non-vote where you just haven't updated your wallet yet. It's actually a vote for something different, kind of. So anyway, that's SegWit. And so that'll be a big thing, at least for the next few months, just seeing how the voting turns out. I mean, like I said, it's reached its culmination. There's not much more to do other than see what happens with the voting. So stay tuned for all of that. Tim, we have another paragraph here in our show notes from last New Year's episode. And it's pretty interesting. It's something we actually covered in a similar way just recently. So I'll let you share some about that, Tim. What did we cover at the end of last year? What else?
We talked about how Bitcoin is worked compared to what people consider to be more traditional investment options. Specifically, we talked about the Apple Watch, Volkswagen, and just the whole country. Never mind. My phrasing there was not good because I read what we actually covered. And they're not investment options, they're just things. It was the Apple Watch, Volkswagen, and Greece. And I think Greece has just kind of continued to collectively shit the bed. Volkswagen, I was looking at their chart. That was pretty much the only chart I was going off of for if stocks go back up at the end of the year. They ended near where they started the year, I'm pretty sure.
What does it? Are you still looking at it? What did it look like throughout the course of the year? Did it stay pretty steady? Did it go up at all? Down at all?
Dropped down a little bit at the beginning of the year, then had a pop up around June or May, and then went back down and then kind of crawled back up.
Okay, so it moved up and down, but like you said, at the end, it's pretty much right where it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty similar. I think a little bit higher than it started, but pretty similar.
All right. And what about the Apple? Is the Apple the other one that you were looking at? And or just look it up right now while I'm talking. But what did any idea what that did over the year?
Well, Daniel, since I'm clicking on that right about now, it's Apple's high. It started around, was it 110, and it's ending up more around like 115. I don't.
But see, that's the thing. Like that's 5%. What does Bitcoin do? Like Bitcoin opened the year at what? 300, 250. All right, now we got to look it up.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's definitely jumped quite a bit. Started around just over 400 January 2016, and then as we've been saying, it's up around.
Yeah, so that's 100%. 100%. And even if you say, okay, a bunch of it's hype, let's just out of total conservativeness, which I do a lot, whenever I'm trying to calculate, for whatever reason, every single variable, I try to, by a huge factor, I try to make it conservative. So instead of saying that it went up $400, let's just say it went up $40. Okay, that's a factor of 10. We're being so conservative there, it's not even funny. If it only went up $40 or 10%, that's still twice as much as Apple. So, and that's how I like to do my math, is just take every number, make it work against you as much as possible, and see if you still made money. And with Bitcoin, it did so good, it's not even funny.
And then I'm looking at Greece right now, and my description before was definitely accurate. It's kind of keeps on going down.
What are you looking at? Their currency?
No,
or
I'm
their
looking
stock?
I'm looking at the whole stock market over there.
Okay.
And just,
I don't think anybody's buying stock in Greece.
That, and then the big news apparently is that Chick-fil-A is trying to open in Greece? I don't know. Because that was what showed up first when I typed in Greece and economy.
All right.
Chick-fil-A will save us all from ourselves.
Maybe they like chicken. I don't know.
Maybe they can't. Well, I don't know how they're going to afford Chick-fil-A at this point because it's way more expensive than any other kind of fast food.
Well, yeah. So the other thing, speaking of comparing Bitcoin to other industries, what I wanted to say, like we talked about it, like I mentioned, we talked about it in the past few months, and that was comparing it to oil. And somebody did some math and said, based on their calculations, Bitcoin was less volatile than oil over the past year. So, it's supposedly, and by some counts, it is still a small market. I mean, that's one factor. I mean, it is easy to drive up, and it is easy for things to change a lot quickly compared to, well, I guess maybe that's in terms of volatility anyway, maybe that's a good thing. Its market is way, way, way smaller than oil, and so it could be moving even more, and yet it still is less volatile than oil. I guess. I don't know, but
either that or the whole oil thing and just the world is really messed up, which true. I'm definitely willing to believe that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But still, we did a whole episode on that, so go listen to that one if you want to hear about Bitcoin versus oil. But we also briefly mentioned Twitter in there too, and something else I forget. But yeah, Bitcoin was less volatile than some other things, and that's a good sign too. And I guess if the pattern continues, for example, a year ago we were saying that, oh wow, Bitcoin is not. This is a quote from my show notes. Bitcoin is still not as high as it used to be as of a year ago, but has it had a more successful year than things like Apple Watch, Volkswagen, or Greece? Obviously, yes. And so if the pattern continues, if at the end of the year we can see that it has done better than some other big important stuff, then we can expect that in the future it'll continue to rise. So now, at the end of this year, we just recently said it did better than oil and Twitter and whatever else. In some ways, that was volatility, not the price. But still, in some ways, it did better than other huge industries. And so maybe, if the pattern continues, we'll see it continue to rise throughout 2017. Does that seem like a fair pattern comparison?
I'm hoping it does, and I'm hoping it draws back down. But yeah, I think, and it's starting to show, what those do is it shows that Bitcoin isn't something that you can't just use it's not stable, or you can say it's not stable, but you can't say, it's a stability of degrees, because people used to be able to complain and say that, Bitcoin won't work. You're stupid for being involved with Bitcoin. It just jumps all over the place. But then you show, pretty much what the world runs on is all, it's volatile. People don't know where it's going. So it takes away that thing of, I think Bitcoin's stupid because it's volatile. Well, then just, yeah. Sure. I completely, if you want to say that, I completely agree with it. But then you also have to realize that plenty of other things that we put way too much faith in do it too.
Yeah.
And I think that, past things that happen, just because Bitcoin's been going up, obviously doesn't mean it will continue to go up. But again, because you're dealing with something where it's people's perception of it, people's understanding of it, it definitely helps. And it definitely leads more people to be like, oh, okay, I can use this maybe.
Yeah. We did a whole episode about it, so I don't want to go into this too much, but I would just agree that you're right. The world runs on energy by definition. The world wouldn't happen if there was no energy. And yet, every few years, gas prices can go up $1 or down $1. And I'm talking about gas for your car. So $1 is 50% or 30%. And there's regulation, and there's new innovations and technology and renewable energy. And yeah, all of that is volatile. No one knows where a certain energy company's stock is going to go. how much money they're going to make, where they're going to get regulated out of and regulated into. So that's a very good point. I agree. It's the most important thing in the world, energy, by definition almost. And yeah, it goes all over the place too. So there it is. That's comparing Bitcoin to other stuff. And yeah, so it might go up because it seems like it's doing okay. You never know. But so then
it might go down. Who knows?
Exactly. That's what Daryl W. Perry said last week. I'll give you options. Number 1, it could go up. Number 2, it could stay the same, or number 3, it could go down. Well, that's right. That's what we say every week here. Well, I don't know.
I'd also like to make the point that I did say it was going to continue to go up. So anyone who bought Bitcoin off of the
off of your advice,
you can just throw like a little bit into a tip for me, and make sure you mark it and send Daniel a message and tell him to not touch it because he has enough money already.
Yeah. So the tipping addresses are on our website, me and btc.com, and I do control them all. So you got to tell me if you want me to send it, and send it to Tim, and then you got to hope that I'll actually do it. So I guess you could run an experiment and see how well it works. But anyway, so there is one more thing that we absolutely need to get to before we wrap up today, Tim, and that is covering the last year and the next year in YMB, right? We got to talk about the show and the website. What did you think about the last year? How did we change? What did we grow anywhere? Did we fall apart anywhere? Did you have fun? Did you hate it? What do you think?
Awful.
I want to know, where are we at as a future Fortune 500 website?
Well, when I was looking through it before, I was kind of surprised at it didn't seem like that long ago, because I'm still young enough, and we're both still young enough where a year is like a long time.
Right. That's pretty true.
I would look back and I'm like, this feels like we covered this like a really long time, or at least I felt like it should. And then I was like, I felt like I was talking about like that like last week. So I'm kind of worried about me getting too old now. So no, like this podcast is just gonna be like the thing I look back on and just, okay, this is what I grew up with and then died with. And it's like an animal that you kind of grow up with and you're like, well, I don't know when it's gonna die, but I hope I outlive it by a little bit. I know this year we had, we finally, started to argue a little bit more. I know we had one episode where there was a lot of arguing, and I think we ended up saying the exact same thing, but it was at least like a spirited argument. Like, it was the first time I got like mad during a podcast, which was cool.
What do you mean? You're mad all the time, every time. What are you talking about?
It's not actual anger, Daniel.
We argue all the time. We argued for the entire show. All right? Quit arguing with me. Jeez.
It's for entertainment. It was whenever it turned from my fake podcast persona into angry Tim. So I think it's been a good year for us. There's been a decent amount of stuff changing this past year for all three of us. So I'm glad that we still kept doing it.
True, yeah.
A lot less John, so that's always cool.
Yeah. I think for me, you're right. Like, in terms of our lives, a lot changed. I moved away. John got married. I'll never say Tim got married, probably. But,
thank you.
Yeah, so a lot changed in our lives. But in terms of the podcast, I was going to say the last year, just like in Bitcoin, it felt like a certain level of stability. I mean, yeah, Bitcoin has been rallying over the past month or two, but over the year, compared to previously, like we were just talking about with volatility, Bitcoin has been pretty stable for quite a while, and until the last like week or two or whatever. But anyway, regardless of whether it actually matches with Bitcoin, I felt like the podcast reached a certain level of stability where we'd done it for 2 years now, and in those 2 years, yeah, we tried new stuff, we tried live shows. You know, we went through different ways of hosting the podcast and distributing the podcast and tracking downloads we had to go through syndication on Liberty.me and the World Crypto Network and LRN.FM, and all that was crazy. This past year, it was stable. And yeah, in a sense, we were busy and we didn't have time to do any crazy new big live stuff. And so it didn't necessarily grow outrageously, but I don't have a problem with that. I'm happy that we were able to go a whole year without, okay, our podcast host was settled. We use Spreaker and it works and we like it and it embeds on our website. So, I mean, that's the stuff I think about because I run the website. Tim might not think about that at all.
It's up in the cloud. It's good.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of the website as a whole, we went through numerous redesigns, well, like 3 or 4. And this whole year, it was stable. I liked the website and we didn't change anything. We didn't change the theme. We didn't change our web host. It was just stable. It was just there. It worked every week. I could make a post and it was a new episode and then to bring it just to in terms of the podcast, again, it felt like stability. Every week, we would find something interesting and have a conversation, right? Our recording setups were stable. I mean, yeah, Tim, you still need to get a new mic eventually. But still, we had settled into a recording pattern every week. I would text you, when you want to record, and we know how to get our audio to each other and the best way to do the recording because, early on we tried different microphones and different communication software and different methods. Anyway, I could go on and on. I already have said a bunch that most of you listeners and even Tim and John might never even think about who the web host is and the podcast host and the web design. But for me, like I said, super, super level of stability. Our audience has been relatively stable, but it has grown steadily over the year and over the years. And that I love, more website visitors, podcast downloads. That has actually been a definite increase. I'll pull up the chart right now. We don't normally get into numbers on the show. Not really for any reason. I just never I just don't think we've ever done this. But if you're interested, when I add up all of the numbers from all of our syndicates, from different SoundCloud accounts and YouTube accounts and everything, at the beginning of the year, at a quick glance here, the totals were coming out to 700 to, if we were really lucky and had a really good episode, we might hit 1,200. All right, I'm seeing episode 108 at about 1,200, and that was a good one at the time. And the lower ones, 103, 104, 105, 105, sire. 103 and 4 are at about 700. So that's where we were a year ago. Now, at the more recent episodes, our record, I'm looking at episode 142, and it hit 2,700 downloads and counting. That's 142. We have 1,500s in here, 1,200s, 1,400s, 1,200s. So, yeah, listeners have steadily increased throughout the year. Same thing with page views on the website. And so, there we go. I went on for a while about that, but that's how I feel. Stable and steady growth. Nothing crazy, but steady growth, and I'm enjoying it. I've been learning a lot, and it's been fun. Thanks for being a part of it, everyone that's listening. And Tim, thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, buddy. You could say we were hitting our stride, getting more comfortable. Negatively, people it's just stagnation.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
No, I get what you mean, where it's kind of like, well, okay, I'm not gonna, we know we have, a certain amount of listeners.
Yeah, we have consistency. Yeah. And, I'm not saying I wouldn't we talked about at the beginning of the year starting a whole new show. And I positively would love that. I would love to break the stability and try new stuff and change stuff and redesign stuff. I'm not saying I wouldn't like that. That's just I don't have time. I haven't found the time yet. And I'm still incredibly happy that we've gone a whole year consistently between 1,000 and 2,000 downloads, sometimes more. I mean, not many people can say that. I mean, most people, when they try to start a website or a blog or a podcast, after a few months, they fizzle out. Or even if they're lucky and they make it a year or two, then they just like, well. But we've been doing all right. Maybe we'll fizzle out this year. I don't know. But we did, Let's Talk Bitcoin stepped it back from 2 episodes a week to 1 episode a week. I hope it doesn't happen, but you never know. Maybe we'll go to 1 episode a month and start a new show. I have no clue. But I guess that's another thing we should at least, I should ask you about, Tim, before we wrap up. Any expectations for the next year? Is there anything that you also would love to see, like a new show or more episodes, maybe longer episodes, shorter episodes? I have no idea. Different format, different guests, different hosts. Do you want me to fire you?
I mean, I'd prefer if John and I just did more episodes like the Donald Trump one, where we just lied our asses the entire time. I was going through more of the episodes while you were talking, and I was like, oh, okay, I remember that. And I was like, oh, yeah, there was this dude that said he was Satoshi. I completely forgot about that.
Oh, yeah, Craig Wright. Yeah. Oh, man.
For 2017, yeah, more growth. Because if nothing else, more growth just means you have more people you can kind of con into listening to your next attempt too. So yeah,
here's one bit of inspiration that I just got.
Inspiration.
Well, yeah, related
for the new year,
related to growing the podcast and keeping the numbers up and steadily growing. This was a quote that I heard Michael W. Dean say. We had him on a few weeks ago to talk about Bitcoin. And I didn't hear it directly from him. I heard someone else say that it was a Michael W. Dean quote. But he said, "You're only as good as your last episode." And I like that because oftentimes we end an episode and we'll say, this happened and this happened. It wasn't perfect, but, it was an episode. It was good, which works to an extent, but you need to keep every episode good. Make every episode great again, okay? I like that idea. It inspired me. I want to make sure that every time we record, by the time we finish, I can say, that was awesome. That was great. So if someone listens this week, that's how good we are, and I'm happy about that. So I'll keep that in mind as we continue recording. Like right now, we better wrap this up on a strong note, Tim, or everyone's going to hate us for the next week. Be strong.
I mean, probably. It's going to leave a taste in their mouth for the entire year because everyone knows the end of year episode's very important. The holiday episode's very important. So yeah, I'd like to see us grow. I need to get my ass into gear and maybe look at me trying to do something like a podcast.
Oh yeah,
pushing for me to do that since I have too much time at this point.
Well, I've been telling you that for years that you should do something online, a YouTube channel, a podcast, and I will absolutely syndicate it on You, Me, and BTC and on the website. No questions asked. We're doing it. So you already have a steady audience that I'm giving you free that you can pull from.
I got you that audience. The audience is here because of me.
Yeah, I bet.
It is.
Well, let us know. Hey,
chart viewing.
Seriously, guys, tell us why you're listening to the show. That is one of the most useful pieces of feedback for any company, any business. Why are you there? Why are you a customer? I want to know. Why are you listening right now? Leave a comment wherever you're listening, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spreaker, our website, wherever. Tell us why you're listening. What do you like about the show? If you've been listening for a while, tell us what you liked about the past year. I mean, tell us if you heard about us on Twitter or if your friend told you about us. That's great stuff for us to know. It's great stuff for other people to see when they're checking out our stuff. And we would love to know, and it would help us. It would help guide the next year. So tell us what you thought of the last year. Tell us why you're listening. And tell us what you want for next year. Do you want me to fire Tim? Because I can make that happen. All it takes is one person.
Just like, get rid of him. All right, fine, Tim. I'm sorry. There's been outcry of support for your head. So get out.
Exactly. And hey guys, thanks for being here this week. Tim, as at the end of every episode, we try to do advice of the week. So I guess that's the point that we're at right now. I have mine prepared, but I feel like Tim has something great cooking back there. So. Anything for us?
What are you talking about? Advice for going into the new year?
Yeah, work out every week for the first month.
No, what are you talking about every week? If you're going to work out once a week, you might as well not even do it. You aren't at the gym pumping steroids into your ass 4 days a week at the minimum. That's your rest day. You got maybe if you were busy or something, go at 6 a.m. in the morning, get your day started, drink 7 cups of coffee, go do that. But actual advice, have more fun with your life, I guess. Try to do things that you want to do because, like, I may have said something like this before, but if nothing else, this year has kind of shown me that things don't always work out the way that things don't work out the way that people always expect them to. So don't spend all your time, don't spend your life doing something because you have this like 5-year plan to figure something out. Because in about 2 years, that plan is going to change, and it's always going to change into something else. And the more you do for somebody else, is the less you're going to do for yourself. So,
wow.
Yes, for the new year, focus on yourself. Send me Bitcoin for that information. Take control of your life, I guess. Get some of it back. Don't work yourself to the bone doing something for somebody else.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like that thought, that sentiment, and
coming from an unemployed person, that's not all that wise, but whatever.
Oh, geez. Well, hey, speaking of sending you Bitcoin in return for your advice, that's mine is going to be something like that. We really do love your support and need it. So if you have been listening for the past year, the one of the best ways that you can support us is on Patreon. You'll get your rewards and bumper stickers and shout outs and whatever, and there are goals for entire new parts of the show that we could add. So if you're willing, that would be huge. That's you, me, and btc.com/feed us. Help feed us for the next year. Help us do more for ourselves so that we don't have to do as much for you. So No. We really do value your feedback, and we will consider absolutely anything that you comment. Seriously. Even if it is firing Tim, I'll consider it. But
it'll go through his head a couple times.
Yeah.
Maybe more than a couple.
Support would be the best. It would help continue this show and grow it. You, me, and btc.com/feed us. Happy New Year, guys. Thanks for staying with us for another hour here, roughly. I like the longer shows, and this one is close to an hour. I love it when that happens. I have been Daniel Brown, and I have been here with...
I being Tim Baker. Whatever you say. I have been many things, but today I have been
in my
Tim
past
Baker.
Lives. Well, yeah, like we said...
Happy New Year's. Let's rage. Everybody get lit.
The thing is, actually, Tim, you said we had less John this year, but the fact is, he's the only one that has actually been in every single episode since the beginning. And that is with his music. We've used his music almost exclusively, and it has been in every single episode. So I think he's got us beat. I've even missed a few episodes here and there. So thanks, John, for the music that we're listening to right now. Have a good honeymoon. That's where he is right now as well. Have a good 2017. And peace. We'll see you all next week. We're not, just because it's the end of the year doesn't mean we're going anywhere. So see you next week.
We don't stop. Keep on your grind. Bye-bye.